Am I audible? Yeah, good. So, I think I've been given quite a different challenge by Anil and Ganesh because I didn't come with a computer. I came with this. That's all I have. Because the request from them was to listen to the previous sessions and try and connect what was told, what was agreed on, or what was presented to the amazing panel, amazing lineup of speakers who's going to talk on session 3. So while they are going to talk about passing value upstream to producers, listening to the sessions from the morning, I thought there is still a little bit of a paradox around something in tea which needs to be unpacked. And I'll not take a lot of time. I'll probably, I'll try to rush this because I know you guys have spent a whole day and there's a lot to unpack, a lot of things that you have heard throughout the day, right? So it goes like this. Now, session 1 spoke about new horizons and we were all, I think, awe-inspired. It was amazing. Amount of things that you could do, you could venture into. I think there was no doubt about the possibilities. But towards the very end, you would have heard Sharon Hall talking about everyday tea, right? And also making a comment that everyday tea is kind of pulling down artisanal, pulling down other things, which is something we've seen right throughout our tea life, right? So forget artisanal for a moment, forget organic where I come from a moment, because those things won't make any change. We had to agree. We have to agree on that, because having listened to session 2 speakers, starting from Dilhan to Nadeem, in between Ibrahim and our colleague from Unilever, there were certain things I think were quite clear and we could all agree. One, everyday tea prices tend to be lower than lower, and it tends to be dragging down other things as well. That's one. And then Dilhan spoke about price and value paradox, right? And that's a huge confusion to the industry. I think every time we come together, we talk about this, and we've never found out as to how we could solve this. And Ibrahim and quite a lot of other speakers spoke about tea being too cheap. Far too cheap is the word he said, right? That's also very clear. I don't think that needs any more introduction. Race to the bottom, whether it's price, whether it's quality, was also agreed on, right? And then with very clear calculations, amazing presentation, we also saw the living wage crisis. But then with all that, Ibrahim ended by saying with just a 10% increase, we might be able to reverse that, which is very hopeful, right? Now, all this brings me to something I started working out now while seated here. I still don't think we understand the cheap paradox as well as we should, right? Now, I might antagonize some of you. I might, say some things that might frustrate my colleagues. But I know tea industry is mature enough to take a challenge, take a little provocation, right? And we don't have time because I only have about 5 more minutes to say what I have to say. So I'll give you an example. Cheap, right? Is cheap really cheap? Is cheap really unfair? Unfair to whom? Think about it. Because when a consumer sees prices, as Nadeem very clearly said, across the shelves, he or she finds a deal, it's a deal for them, it's fair for them, right? And then everything else that is more expensive is unfair to them. So while we try to pass fair price upstream, when downstream prices are low, that upsets the whole thing, right? We agreed on that. And Nadeem also went to the extent of saying it is the brands who got to make the change. Now, I'll come to that. Couple of examples. So I did a quick survey yesterday after a chat with Sharon as well. UK tea prices. Brands that we've admired, loved, right? They are still quite cheap per tea bag, per serving. I think the last slide said 5 cents a tea bag, but I saw upward of 2.5 pence. Good brands, right? I can't work that out. But that's fine, because cheap doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. I'll explain why. Now, one of the examples that I wanted to say, this is like Chatham House rules, Sharon, so don't please quote me. For the people from the UK, I'm going to, I might be criticized for saying this, but that's what happens when I get on stage. I say things that I shouldn't say. This premium cafe chain, you didn't name them, you named the others, came out with a subscription model 2 years ago, post-COVID, because their target market was busy executives who were coming to work, and then COVID obviously resulted in multiple shutdowns. And what these guys did was they came up with a subscription model, initially for 20 pounds, but very soon they realized it was like way too low. 30 pounds a month, you would get 5 barista-made hot drinks, or drinks they said, within a 30-minute interval every day. Now, what's their usual price? These guys are premium players. Upward of 3 pounds, a cup of cappuccino to a black tea or a green tea. Their tea is good quality. Their coffee, I don't know, because I've spoken to Starbucks customers who say these guys don't do that much good coffee. But forget all that. You pay 30 pounds a month, right? You get 5 barista-made drinks a day for that. And then they even included, friends from Japan would be surprised, matcha latte to that, because we heard matcha latte is one way of premiumizing, right? Now, all of that taken thrown away from the window when you give that much of a discount. When you do a calculation, what does it say? At the best, if people utilize this fully, for the price of 1, you get not 2. People talk about buy 2, get 1 free. This is for the price of 1, you get 15 barista-made drinks a day. I haven't seen deep discounting to that level anywhere in the world. Why do they do that to hot tea? Why do they do that to drinks and not for food, right? What happened then? Now, all these things I think we've agreed on. So I only have to add one point which we haven't probably covered enough. And I might be, probably a lot of people will get annoyed with me for saying this. What has happened, I believe, is that this is, whether it's the 2p tea bag I'm talking of, or there's buy 1, get 15 free at most, at the lowest you would get 4, 5 for the price of 1, if you're not using it every day. What happened was there was a new customer that came into this cafe chain that resulted in a huge gain in volumes, right? And they made their money off the sandwiches and the freshly made food. That was their focus. Perfectly all right. So cheap was not really bad for them until it started hitting back on them, which I think the tea industry is missing. The point is the law of diminishing returns. That is what we are facing today, right? What happened was, it was very affordable, 30 pounds. You get month, free drinks for whole month, right? And then people started coming in. Their market changed. They started attracting, when I walked into that cafe, people I'd never seen before. Road workers, shop floor. That became their market. Soon they realized that they're not buying anything else, they're buying just these. And volumes, obviously, of drinks skyrocketed. But it didn't stay for that long. That's the law of diminishing return. It started declining very soon, right? After a year of running it, now with the subscription it's going down, so they're taking it off. Now this is where I will end with this example and then probably open it up to this lovely panel to explore their side of the story. Is that if you remember, some people would have heard of Joshua Bell, one of the world's best violinists, right? He did a social experiment some time back to prove this point. He used to make $1,000 a minute, and it was very hard to get a ticket to his show. He did a social experiment where he proved that when a product or service gets down to a good enough level and is accessible, people don't really care. He played in the subway station, right? All the great music that he was known for. Guess what he made? $32 an hour. If you read this story, you'll understand this is a big story. Because it was not like, I'm not in the right market, this is not my market, nothing like that. It was people who even partly kind of recognized him, didn't want to pay, right? So that's the question mark. When tea has become good enough, cheap is not bad. Let the cheap continue. But how does premium differentiate if we are all sharing one common sourcing model? That's my question. Because Nadeem said brands should lead the change. The only way for brands to lead the change is probably think of the auction system, think of all the amazing things we collaborate on, from farming to producing to grading to selling to everything done the same way. Because in the marketplace, consumer is willing to pay. There are enough examples. You don't have to be niche to get a price, right? Everyday teas have to be higher priced. I'll stop at that, and maybe if there are questions, we'll take it as we go. I've got 7 seconds to introduce my first speaker. Right. Next up, we have Mr. Thomas Franks, the head of Ethical Tea Partnership, who will talk about turning the fair price challenge into an opportunity. So that will be an amazingly positive thing. ETP, as you would know, is focused on, their mission is to catalyze long-term systematic change to benefit everyone in the value chain. Speaking of Tom, I think the fact that he's been in one of the largest tea producers in the world for 10 years would definitely put him in the best condition to look at it from all sorts of sides and talk to you on how to turn the fair price challenge. Thank you.